In this video, I'm going to show you how I freeze and thaw my cake layers. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, then I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. I've had quite a few people ask me recently how I like my process of freezing and thawing my cakes. So what I'm going to show you in this video, I'm not going to show you how I bake them. I have a couple videos showing you my recipes and how I bake cakes, and I will link those in the description below. I will show you how I wrap them up to freeze them and then how I thaw them before I fill them. So let's get into the video. I have two refrigerators completely dedicated just to cakes, completely separate from my food, my regular food in the kitchen. Here is the inside of both of the freezers. This one my friend gave to me, and it didn't come with the shelf in here, so I have just a regular, shelf that I got at Bath and Body Works, not Bath and Body Works, Bed Bath and Beyond. And I like to line everything with cake box lids. I don't like to just put cakes that are cooling directly on this rack. I don't know. I don't even know my reasoning. I feel like I don't want to have there's a lot of lids in here. I don't want to have these lines going through the cake. I just feel like it's better for the cakes to rest on a flat surface. I don't like the lines. So that's my reasoning. You don't have to do that. I change these out every once in a while because when I do my pound cakes, it gets a little greasy. So from time to time, I'll double up on the lids, or I just change them out as I cut them off of boxes for cakes. And I'm explaining way too much about this, but these are my freezers and this is how they are set up. Now I just baked 2 cakes and I'm ready to wrap them up to freeze them. This is an 18-inch wide roll of food safe plastic wrap. You can get them wider or narrower if you want. I get this at a local restaurant store. I can find it on Amazon and link it below for you as well. I like it because it has a slide cutter and it's easy to cut the plastic. So I'm wrapping up a 9-inch and then an 11-inch cake. So I just want to pull out enough plastic to completely cover the cake. Here's the 11-inch cake. And remove all the flour nails. I have a video showing you how I bake big cakes, and I will link that below. I put 5 nails in bigger cakes to help it bake evenly. And now I'm gonna flip up one side. Then I cut, just in case I didn't pull it long enough, I can pull out some more. Flip up the other side and then flip up the ends and make sure that it is completely covered in the plastic. This cake has been cooling for about 5 minutes. This will not melt the plastic. The plastic is going to shrink wrap around it and really protect it from getting freezer burned or anything. I'm going to set this aside and do the same thing for the 9-inch cake. This is my yellow doctored cake mix recipe. I have a video on how I make it. I will link it below. However, I don't think I was freezing my cakes in that video, so I might have to do an updated video showing it. But after I make the cakes, I wrap them up and freeze them now, rather than just wrap them up and leave them cool at room temperature. I am only going to freeze these for about 24 hours. If you're going to freeze them longer than, I would say, like 72 hours, I would double wrap them again in the plastic wrap, just to give it an extra layer of protection. And now I'm just taking the bigger cakes and putting them on the bottom. And I will keep doing the same process for all of my cakes, filling the empty spaces, and then I will show you how I stack them on top of each other. All right, now my freezer is basically full of cakes on the first level. This freezer has cakes that are still pretty warm, so I am going to put the cakes on this side. Since these cakes have been in here for about 3 or 4 hours, and they're pretty solid, so they can withstand the weight of other cakes on top. I'm gonna put a cake lid on top here, and then put the cakes that I just took out of the oven on top of this cake lid. They are all wrapped up in the plastic wrap like I showed you earlier. I want to make a quick note that I always store my cakes in the freezer with the tops facing down. Since I level off the cakes and I cut off the tops, I want the bottom part to be the most even and look the nicest, but it doesn't matter if the top part gets a little messed up while it is being stored. All right, I have more cakes that I want to stick in here. These are still a little soft, so I'm going to do a little shuffling around. These are pretty frozen, but I want to store more cakes down here. So I'm going to shift them over here. And I want to put these cakes on the bottom and these ones that are still a little warm on top. So I'm going to remove this. And get these frozen ones up here. So I'll put another cake lid on top, something that's big enough to cover all of them. And then put these back on top. Close that up. And now I have room for my hot cakes. I'm crouched down, so I'm in frame. My freezers are pretty full right now, so it's like almost 2 o'clock. I'm gonna take a break, go to the gym, do a couple errands, so these can have more time to freeze. I still have about 4 more hours of baking. It's gonna be a busy week. And then when I get back, a lot of these cakes will be frozen, so I can stack more on top of each other. I put a bunch of cooling racks on my table, so when I get up early in the morning and I take all of them out of the freezer, I can place them on the cooling rack so they can properly thaw. I totally forgot to take a picture of all of the cakes in the freezer before I went to bed last night. So I got up this morning at 4 a.m. and started taking them out of the freezer, and then I took these pictures. And I know they're so dark and you can't really see them. I didn't want to turn the light on because I wanted to go back to sleep. So you can kind of see how everything is layered. There's a piece of cardboard in between all of the cakes, you know, and I just stack them. Once they're frozen, I can stack them on top of each other and they are fine. So at 4 a.m., I woke up and I came down here and I took all of these cakes. I have a really busy week. I took all of these cakes out, and it is about 10 o'clock right now. So it's 6 hours that they have been sitting out. They are completely thawed. They are room temperature. You don't want to fill a cake when it's still frozen. So that's why I get up early in the morning when I have a lot of cakes to do, especially, and take and just let them thaw, completely wrapped. I have a little note here telling me what flavor this is because I have the vanilla and my wedding bouquet flavor both look very similar, and I made some in the same size of vanilla and wedding bouquet. So if you are doing something like a chocolate and a chocolate chip, which will look exactly the same, sometimes I like to label them. But yeah, so that's how I wrap up my cakes, and I freeze them and then thaw them and I let them sit out. I always put them on these cooling racks. That way, sometimes when these thaw, a little bit of condensation can form. And this way, if condensation forms, it drips through the cooling racks down onto the table. So there you go. There's my process of freezing and thawing cakes. So a few things that I want to go over. Number one, why do I do this? Because freezing your cakes when they are still warm out of the oven, when you wrap them up in the plastic, put them in the freezer, it traps in the moisture and helps keep your cakes really moist. And I'm not going to feel weird about saying moist because it is an acceptable word in the cake world. But freezing them, wrapping them up, freezing them, ever since I've been doing that, it has just made my cakes taste so much better. They are moist and they are delicious, and I just like doing it this way. Number two, I let my cakes cool for about 2 to 5 minutes. Why did I say 2? 2 to 5 minutes before I wrap them up. Sometimes I wrap them up right away. It all depends on what's going on, but anywhere from like 2 to 5 minutes. Then I will flip it over onto the plastic wrap like you saw in the video, wrap it up and freeze it. But yeah, while it's still warm, and like I said, the plastic wrap is not going to melt. It's not going to get into the cake. It just kind of shrink wraps the plastic around the cake and you get a really good seal on it. Number three, most important thing, to make sure that your cake layers are frozen before you would stack any on top of each other. Now this week, this is actually my busiest week ever. I have a lot going on and I had tons of cakes in the freezer and everything was frozen before I put that cardboard lid on top and stacked other cakes on top. This way they don't get distorted. So that is very important if you're going to be layering cakes on top of each other in the freezer. Number four, wait, is this number four? Well, whatever, I'm gonna stop counting. You have to thaw your cakes before you fill them. You don't want to fill and ice a frozen cake. Just think about it. And the neighbor's mowing the lawn. Maybe you can't hear it, but I could, so it was annoying. But anyway, you can't, think about it. If you have a glass of ice water, right? It's cold on the inside, but if it's warm in the air on the outside, condensation forms on the outside of that cup. So the same would happen with your cakes. If you fill a frozen cake, the cake is cold, the outside is warm, you're going to start to get condensation forming on the outside of that cake layer. And if you already ice the cake while it's frozen, that cake inside is going to defrost. Water droplets are going to form. It's just going to mess everything up. And I'm sure people have had success with it, icing and filling a frozen cake. I don't do it that way. And all I know is to show you what I do and what I've had success with. So these cakes here have been sitting out, like I said, for 6 hours. They are completely thawed and wrapped up and ready to be filled. And I have videos showing you my next step in the process of how I fill cakes and also how I ice them and whatnot, and I can link all of those below. But I was getting so many questions about how I freeze and thaw cakes that I thought I wanted to make a video on it. And I don't really freeze fully decorated cakes, only in extreme circumstances, if parties were canceled, weather events, you know, like something like that. And I also have a video showing you how I would wrap and freeze and work with a decorated cake. I think that's it. I hope I answered all your questions in this. If you guys have any other questions or comments, leave them below. And you can follow me on social media, and I got my website. Everything is listed in the description below as well. And if you want to stick around, you can watch these 2 videos next. And hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Please like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, it's cake. It's delicioso. Where'd that come from? Have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.